For the special council, none. Okay. The item on the agenda is the review of the scheme for the establishment of community councils. And do we have any questions or comments? Councillor James McLaren.
Thank you, Provost. It's on page 4.3, mentions the boundary between Hawkhead, Lochfield and Paisley East and Whitehall community councils. As Mark Conahan will be aware, I've highlighted the need to revise the boundary of Erskine Community Council and Bishopston Community Council to correspond with the ward boundary, and these community councils seem to have agreed to that proposal. So if that could be noted, please. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Andy Doig.
Thanks, Provost. What I would say is, in its review, I would urge the Council in the strongest possible terms to consider a proper complaints procedure for community councils. Most of our community councils operate extremely well. They're staffed by volunteers who give it their time, their knowledge, their efforts extremely freely, and they contribute an awful lot to communities, especially in relation to planning issues where they've got a statutory remit. But there have been a few instances, there are a few occasions that are known to me, Provost, where some community councils are operating under what I would say is, to be polite about it, undue political influence. So I would say that I think there has to be a complaints procedure. The political neutrality of community councils has to be sacrosanct, and I would like that to be incorporated into any review. Thank you.
Okay. You got anything to say, Mark?
Thank you, Provost. The proposal that's set out in the paper is that we would be incorporating a complaints procedure, which, as members will be aware, there hasn't been one previously. Under the current scheme, the only sanction that can arise against a community council is if, in my opinion, as the head of corporate governance, they are not meeting the terms of the scheme. I can choose to suspend them. They're then obliged to work with me as a working group, and then ultimately, if that does not resolve the issues, then it would be for Alistair, as the Director of Finance and Resources, to bring a report back to Council recommending dissolution of a community council. That's obviously a very, very severe sanction, when in some cases the issues that potentially are being raised are issues in respect of perhaps one individual community councillor. So the proposal here is that there will be a complaints procedure that would allow members of the public to complain, firstly directly to the community council itself, and the community council would be required to consider that, and thereafter there would then be an appeal to the effectively an appeals panel made up from the forum. So it would be other community councillors from other community councils, not the one that was being complained about. That's the proposal that we're consulting upon. I've certainly had an initial discussion at the last community council forum meeting to indicate that that's the suggestion. On the question of political neutrality, that is clearly set out in the existing scheme, and we're not proposing to alter that in any way.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'll let you back in, Andy, in a minute when I've brought in Councillor Gilmer. Councillor Chris Gilmer.
Thank you, Provost. Very interesting. Community councils are, to me, one of the very good organisations we have in our communities, all volunteers. Having served in a community council, indeed been the chair of a community council, I understand the hard work they do, but I think we shouldn't go too far from remembering they are volunteers. And I, if I was a member of the community council, would be personally very worried that another community council is investigating me, because that brings GDPR issues in. These people are not regulated by the volunteers. So if someone was going to examine me, I prefer it to be a professional board of officers on complaints against myself, as opposed to volunteers who might have no knowledge at all about any sort of employment law, personal laws, libel laws, anything like that. Because if I was a member of the Community Council with the misfortune to be brought up before my peer group. The guy who'd be sitting beside me would be a lawyer. And then Renfrewshire Council would be in the dock asking why that went through. So from my point of view, we need to tread very carefully about disciplinary measures within community councils. There have in the past been vexatious complaints against community councillors, allegations against community councils, not just, of course, I attend 4 community councils, but out with the swathe of the community councils that I've attended, speaking to other community councils. So what I would say is, I understand the need for change, Provost. However, we should tread very carefully, because these people are volunteers, and if they get fed up with us, they'll walk away. And those people pick an awful lot into our communities. So be very, very careful how we say and how we go about it. Thank you very much, Provost.
Chris, I'll bring Mark in just to address
Thank,
what you said.
thank you, Provost. The first thing I'll say is very clearly at this stage what we are proposing is this is a consultation. So community councils will have the chance to come back and respond to that. The proposal that we have put forward in this paper is actually based on a model that works in other council areas and is currently being operated by other community councils. So other community councils within other council areas currently have this system and are dealing with complaints through this. But absolutely, if individual community councils wish to come forward with representations, either they don't want a complaints process or that they would wish a complaints process, but with a different process there, perhaps with officers involved, they're perfectly free to make that recommendation. The intention is we will go and consult and then bring something back to a further special council meeting at a later date for approval for members.
Okay, Councillor Gilmer. Councillor Andy Doig.
Thank you, Provost. I'm reasonably assured.
Good.
Thanks, Provost. I think I would, in fact, reinforce the point made by Councillor Gilmer that I don't think having, say, the community council next door investigate complaints would be valid enough. We're in the 21st century. Community councillors, due to its democracy proposals, the council, this administration, you've did extremely well in giving community councils a real say. Community council conveners have a vote and a voice to decide grant applications. Now that's important. So we have to, that was never the case before. So when there's public money involved, I would expect, and my constituents would expect, community councils, especially community council conveners, to uphold the highest standards of political neutrality. If that's not the case, I would like that to be investigated by council officers. And I'm saying here right now, if that's not happening, I refuse to participate in a community council that does not behave in that way, because my constituents would expect party politics is fine. It takes place in here. It takes place within political parties. If it's happening at community councils, I'm having no part of it. I'll make that clear here publicly, and I want it to be investigated by this council. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Doig. Okay, can we agree the report then? Agreed. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your patience with all the glitches. Thank you.